The iPhone XR, the top selling smartphone of 2020. This is the phone that everyone is buying right now, and this is the phone that everyone says apparently is the best phone of 2020. Do I agree with this? What is the reasoning of why it would be the top selling smartphone of 2020 when this was released back in, well, 2018? Let me answer that for you. I thought I had a punchline and I just didn't have one. That was
I thought it'd be me and you. I guess it wasn't true. If I only knew what you put me through, I don't deserve this.
There are 3 questions that I have written down, and I'm going to read it from the iPhone XR, of why I believe this is the top selling phone of 2020, but also kind of filling in the controversy of things why you might feel like it's not. So let's get started. So the first question is why people buy it. Well, I jotted down 3 little notes to this question that I would like to just zip by real quick. Price, availability, and reputation. So, price. Right now, in 2020, to buy a brand new iPhone XR, so brand new, never opened, like straight out of the box, it is $599. So $600 gets you 3 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, Face ID, a 4K at up to 4K at 60 frames per second, wide angle camera with portrait mode. This iPhone started at $750 when it was first retailed. That wasn't as appealing as, well, most smartphones that were released in 2018. But in 2020, for $599, for these specifications, it's really more than anyone ever needs. You have a really nice camera, which is what people care about in a smartphone, especially something that fits in their pocket. Something that looks elegant. It might not be the prettiest phone on the market, but it's enough to where it stands out when you pull it out of your pocket or when you're trying to make a fashion statement or even making a phone call. It does give it that little flair. And it looks good. It's not the best looking display that you'll find in a smartphone. Yes, it is not a 1080p display, but based off of the usage that I've seen with the iPhone XR, you really don't notice it. In my head, I was like, can I say that was a straight face? So me personally, I can notice it, but only because I've been using an OLED screen iPhone since the iPhone X back in 2017. So that is 3 iPhones with OLED screens and then going to an LCD, which is a weird transition to go to. Not a bad one, just a weird one. It's different, but it's not bad. And I don't hate it, but I also don't prefer it. One of the reasons is dark mode. Whenever I am in dark mode, you see those deep blacks, you really get that high contrast, but with the iPhone XR, the LCD is actually on when it comes to, well, anything that's displayed on it, because that's what an LCD does. With an OLED, those pixels are actually off. Like, they are black, like pure black. And it looks so much better when you're doing things like just browsing the internet or watching a quick YouTube video like this one. It gives it that experience, but the reputation of it's an Apple, like, this is an iPhone. I'm buying an iPhone with a 4K 60 frame per second camera. So I can take the photos I want, right? Awesome. I can get the battery life I want, right? Great. I can have an elegant looking phone. Awesome. I can get most of the latest features. Great. The main reasons why people upgrade for iPhones is, well, the cool stuff. Like, I can unlock it just by looking at it. That's it. I looked at it and it unlocks. That's cool. Those are things people care about. Not all the time, but they're like, that's a cool feature on a phone. And because of that reputation that this is made, that's why people are still buying it rather than the iPhone 11. Because every time you see an iPhone 11, you see versus 10R. What is this against the 10R? What does this have versus the 10R? You keep seeing iPhone 11 with the 10R. You usually don't see the iPhone 11 by itself. You see it compared to the 10R, because really the only difference is processing speed, LTE performance, another camera. That's it. You are pretty much looking at another iPhone 11, just cheaper. And that's what people care about is, oh, so it's not that different. I'll be fine with last generation then. So that leads to question number 2. Why tech reviewers did not like the phone. I'll sum this up really quickly, save you some time. The display. That was pretty much it. I think that if the iPhone XR or the iPhone, no, never mind. The iPhone XR, keep it exactly the way it is. You know, people say what they say about it, the thick bezels on it, because it's a liquid retina LCD panel, and LCD, you know, takes a little bit more space than an OLED does. That's true. Leave the less than 1080p display on it, just under. Leave that there. iPhone 11, put a 1080p display in it. Shrink the bezels down. Keep everything else the same. Tech reviewers would not stop talking about that phone. And people would probably still buy this phone. Because just because tech reviewers didn't like the phone doesn't mean you won't. And looking back at the reviews of after this phone was released, people started talking really great about it. I stopped seeing bad reviews of the phone. I started seeing good reviews of the phone. I started seeing people using it as their daily driver. I saw people putting their OLED phones away, putting their high-end smartphones away, and using the 10R as their daily driver. And it just goes to show how this phone is not a bad phone. And it's the right phone for most people. And that is primarily why people buy it in the first place. So that brings us to the final question that I've written down on this phone. And that is why I have it now. There's 3 portions of this, and I will tell you what they are before explaining them. Availability, not for me, and good phone. Who counts like this? So I work in retail. I've worked in retail for a couple years now, and we had demo units that were not demos anymore. Like, we weren't gonna have them on display anymore. So we were selling them as pre-owned phones, and we were selling this phone for about $499, which is not bad for an iPhone XR. So that's $100 less than the $599 price tag for a phone that this phone actually wasn't even on the shelf for over a month before it was put away. From what I was told, is that this phone was barely on the shelf. So it was barely used, but being treated as $100 off, and in mint condition, due in fact, and it's not a bad phone to have as a backup camera. So for this right here, I'm shooting on my iPhone 11 Pro, but there are times where I need to review this phone or when I buy the next phone, I either traded this one in right at that start or not. And I like the image quality that I get out of an iPhone substantially better than I do with really anything else. I'm not saying I don't like what you get out of a professional camera or out of a GoPro. It's just not the same for me. And I like what the iPhones produce when it comes to videos. And it's something that it's really easy for me to work with the type of schedule that I have. It's really easier to post, edit for me, and it just works out that way. One day that'll change, but for now, I think this is a pretty good bet. When I say this phone's not for me, after saying all of that, is I don't think I'm gonna keep this phone. This is gonna be a phone that I'm going to lend to somebody for a little while before they get a new phone. And that's really something that I thought about a lot. And it's not that I'm not doing it, it's that I understand now what this phone is for, or who it was made for. It's made for those who don't hate flagship phones. They don't hate them. They just either can't afford it, or it's not appealing enough to where they would drop the money for one, like it used to be. Yeah, about to not be for me if I drop that phone. I might end up getting this phone back. I might. But what my big plan was to help somebody who has a phone that is dying, and just to help them out a little bit. But what I will say is that you're welcome, is all I will say. All I'll say is you're welcome about that. And the final thing is why this phone it's a good phone. Gets you all the flagship features you want without breaking the bank. But you know what also doesn't break the bank is clicking that subscribe button. More videos are on the way. I took a little bit of a break, but I am gonna be jumping right back into it. Just like you should jump right on that like button and on the subscribe. I am probably pointing nowhere near those buttons, but I appreciate you sticking right through it. Thanks so much. Matane.